Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Ni tip ha h pongwelje lome rom ku wel kumuva hori so.
Can I wait for the translation, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Houselights, House of Meyer. That's right. We're doing our double bill of the director Nicholas Meyer, and last week, which you all should have listened to by now, and if you haven't, go back, listen, and enjoy, and then come back and enjoy this. We did Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, and tonight, we're doing Star Trek The Undiscovered Country. I am your co-host, Tristan Riddell, and with me as always is General Darren Moser, the one and only Klingon who has an eye patch, and I can't wait for that origin story. And then we also have John Mills himself, who is the leading expert in gaseous anomalies. How are you guys doing tonight? Darren?
It looks painful, but they missed on the first rivet, and that went right through the middle, and then the other three were just to cover it up. So it should have been a one rivet operation. Look, Klingon surgeon's not. We had one, but he died. So it happens more often than you think. But no, I'm very excited to talk about Star Trek 6. It's a really good movie, and especially we were just talking about the end of Next Gen on SETI Alpha 3 as we were kind of pitching a hypothetical fifth movie. Like, what if they were wrapping it up with a movie instead of with Picard, is what we kind of, and we draw it heavily from this movie. Not copied, homaged. We homaged this movie.
You were inspired.
Very inspired.
Yeah.
I took notes.
We need breathing room. Earth, Hitler, 1938. I beg your pardon.
For those of you who, if you guys like us talking about Star Trek, specifically Darren talking about Star Trek, you absolutely should go to thenerdparty.com and check out SETI Alpha 3. It's been going on for a while, and it gets better every single episode. And it is a fantastic group of guys together talking about all things Star Trek. And if you want to go to the other side of the pond with another franchise, Star Wars, you can go and listen to an aggressive I stumbled a little bit on it. I almost called it like Annihilation for some reason. I think it's spelled like Annihilator. No, Aggressive Negotiations with John.
Yes, that's true.
Which they talk all things Star Wars over on that side.
We sure do, and we have a great time. I'm a fan of SETI Alpha 3. I'm a fan, of course, of Aggressive Negotiations. But I think that fans of both Star Wars and Star Trek can shake hands and come to an agreement here about Star Trek 6. I think that this is one of those unifying films where everybody loves to make so much of the split in the franchises, when in all actuality, everybody really loves both. I mean, I've yet to truly find somebody other than my wife, where I'm like, do you like Star Wars? Yes. Do you like Star Trek? No. She's the only person I've ever run across that is that case. And she likes it. She loves Star Wars. She doesn't like Star Trek. But most everybody, even if you're a diehard Star Wars fan and a Star Trek fan in passing, if you sat down and you saw Star Trek 6 in the movie theater in 1991, as I did, it was a crowd pleaser. Like, this was... Star Trek 6 was regarded, I remember standing in line with Joey, who I've mentioned many times, and I'll throw him under the bus a couple of times during this podcast, and standing in line, waiting for the doors to open at Wheaton Plaza 11, and the guy in front of me, and we started talking, and everybody as a consensus saying, I don't know whether this movie is any good. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know whether this movie is any good, but this is undoubtedly an apology for how disappointed everybody was with Star Trek V. Everybody thought Star Trek V was going to close out the series. It was like, hey, here's our last hurrah. Star Trek The Next Generation is on the air. And then everybody universally hated Star Trek V. And it was like this scramble where you could almost sense Paramount saying, we need to close on a better note here. But also there was the 25th anniversary, so they were desperate for getting something. And so when you think about it, nowadays the turnaround of a studio having what would be considered a disaster of Star Trek V, usually you have everybody going back to the planning stages, and we're going to reboot and we're going to figure everything out. And Paramount, to their credit, goes, we got the 25th anniversary coming up. Everybody hated 5. Okay, guys, you got 2 years. Do something. Come up with it. Come in on budget and on time. Who can we go to? And I think that's Star Trek 6 is in a very unique position.
And whose sets could we use? I mean, I don't want to build a lot of sets.
Fortunately, there was a pre-existing Star Trek show in development at the same time. Yeah, I do feel there's a little bit of a nod to the camera in the beginning scene when Kirk and Spock are talking, and he's like, "You do know this crew is meant to stand down in 3 months, aka we were just about to end, but now you vouch for us, aka here's the vouching final film." Like, there's a little parallel in that dialogue, I feel.
Yeah, and I think to the point where we're talking about the sets and everything, there's a minimalism to these sets and the way that they use them.
You know what this conference room needs? Darkness. Lots of darkness.
A lot of darkness. But at the same time, what's crazy is the way that it's shot. You don't notice it really. It's one of those things where, like, yeah, okay, this is the 5,000th time that I've seen it.
Right.
I can break
if
it
you're
down.
a hardcore fan who's seen it so many times, yeah.
But I can promise you, when you saw it in the theater at the time, this is a really well shot movie because it takes these very minimal sets and it makes them work, where you have this sense of scale, this sense of size and scope that you don't typically have in a Star Trek movie. Like Star Trek 3, you can tell that there is a limited budget and a limited scope. Star Trek 4, they're shooting on the streets. Star Trek 5, you could definitely tell. They were like, we're cutting the budget as we go, sort of thing. This one feels like a return to the more epic scope that you're expecting. But then you look at the behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, they basically, the saying is like they sewed silk out of Sal's ear or something like that. They were given really limited resources, and I think it's a true testament to the skill behind the camera to say, how do we make this feel big? Make this feel like a big screen thing. And I think they succeed.
Yeah, when they were on Kronos 1, totally not a nod to Air Force One. Just Klingons, they just happened to call it that.
They know Shakespeare. They know Air Force One. It's crazy.
They received the historical documents, and so they based a lot of stuff off of that. But no, when they were walking around, I was like, man, look at this hallway. This is like an impressive hallway. Like, they had to build this entire hallway because it doesn't exist in any standing next-gen set. And so I was really, all of the, the giant table scene. There's the courtroom scene. There's a lot of. So I totally agree with you, John. They did a lot out of a little, but what they did have to build when they're like, okay, this is something we have to do new, they totally put the money on the screen. It really shows.
There was a moment when, because when you're a super fan, and you're watching this for the 12th time, in the past 5 years, you're really just kind of. You're looking for those little cues. You're like, oh, okay, all right. So like the president's office is actually in 10 forward. Okay. So they put some drapes on this side, and like, oh, their dining room is actually just the observation lounge. Okay. And you're just like looking all around. And one thing that I noticed upon this watch is that there was a shot when they were inside a room. I think it might have been Kirk's quarters, and you're shooting out towards the hallway, and you're like, damn, that is a TNG hallway. You're like, oh, that's so very much a TNG hallway. It's blaring. But then when you're actually in the hallway and they're doing the walk and talk, and you see how they put braces on the sides to really close the hallway in, and they put a lot of goes nowhere, does nothing tubes up on top, it stopped looking like a TNG hallway. And because when you're on the Galaxy class, it's so expansive, you're walking around, you don't run into anybody. But when you're on the Constitution class version, it's more like a submarine, which brings back to the more naval feel that Nicholas Meyer likes to use in his Star Trek movies.
And I think that has a very large nod that has to go to the lighting that they use, where there's a lot of very stark overhead, minimal lighting that happens, where you get, again, that sense, like you're saying, of a naval vessel where you have to make the most of the limited resources that you have. You're not going to have something that's brightly lit like Jean-Luc Picard's quarters or something like that. You're going to have something that feels like you're in a closed-in ship, like a sailing ship. Anybody who's taken a cruise, you have the choice. You can get something with a balcony, or you can get an internal one and pay a little bit less. And in those little bit less ones, you are fully aware that you're in a closet that is in an inner hallway that you don't have. Kirk doesn't have a porthole. He doesn't have anything that would have been expensive in post to add a star field going by or anything like that. It's very much the feeling of he is trapped inside a ship that has very confined sort of things. And that is something I come back to with Star Trek VI an awful lot, is yes, we know that Meyer, as evidenced in Star Trek II, because we're focused very much on Meyer's doing work with Star Trek, we have, I think, a very great refinement here and a very great work with the cinematographer to make this feel like a cramped environment. This is not something like what you feel on TNG, where it's like there's this big, roomy, carpeted hallway where I'm just having a comfortable time going out and exploring space. It's like, I look at the interior of this ship and I see a situation where a captain would be the one to say, no, I'm going on the away team, just because he's desperate to get the hell out of this thing. Like, seriously, like, I think that's a big thing. It's like, you look at the ship and it's like, yeah, I'd want to get the hell out of here too. I wouldn't want to stay inside.
Even if you compare it to Star Trek V, like the look of the ship internally in Star Trek V, it's way more expansive in Final Frontier. Yep. Like, the captain's quarters is huge. They have that observation lounge, which is gigantic. The one with the ship wheel, it's just huge. And then, of course, they have like the infamous scene where the rocket boot's going up through the elevator ship, the turbo shift.
Do you think they struck a lot of
like
that?
100 levels. What do you think?
Like, well, do you think they struck a lot of that? Like, because obviously, if they were expecting 5 to be the end, they would have torn down, Kirk's, his quarters with the captain wheel and all of that.
I honestly don't know. I'm sure that there's tons of fans who do know, but I honestly don't know, because we got a different bridge on the Constitution A every single movie, like in episode, oh my gosh. In Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 5 and Star Trek 6, we all got a different look and feel on the ship, even though it's supposed to be the same exact ship. And so I don't know what they did with the sets after the fact.
Well, I think that with 6, what I think is really interesting is by simply pulling out the carpet and making the interior coloring darker. I think it's fascinating, because just the simple act of changing the lighting and pulling out the carpet makes things look. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Star Trek 6 looks more real to me. This looks like something that actually could exist. Whereas I look at something from 5 or even the end of 4 and I'm like, this looks a little too luxe for its own good, sort of thing. It's sort of, honestly, we keep making reference to TNG. It is that the treatment of the set in Generations feels more, quote unquote, real to me than a lot of what I got in the TNG show, specifically because it's a little bit darker. There's a little bit more sense of restriction inside the ship, and there's a little bit more claustrophobia to everything that I'm seeing. So it feels like an internal thing. Whereas when you look at the show, when it was on my small little Zenith TV back in the 90s, that was one thing. But when I watch it on a larger screen, it feels like, okay, well, they just pulled a wall out and this looks like a set sort of thing.
Yeah.
One of my favorite new sets, as we're talking sets, is the galley. Like, we guys spent a good amount of time there, and it feels like it's in the middle of the ship. Like it feels very confined, and apparently it's easy for everyone to show up because they're like, are you firing phasers? Like what's going
Yeah.
But
and they're ready for a battle at any given moment.
They
'cause
are
have
so ready.
access to a lot of phasers.
If a crewman comes down and they're like, sir, I did not like my food in my Starfleet ration. What did you say? Pulling out the phaser, But maybe they're really worried about being boarded and they're going after the galley. That's a good point. Yeah.
Well, but to talk to that, right, is the sense of a lived-in ship is the detail that I come to expect from a director like Meyer. He seems obsessed with making this seem like a really lived-in space. This is something that is functional, which is something that I think does not occur to other directors in the Star Trek franchise. And further, I think that there is a sense of, having it be something where, while I don't have that same sort of sense that I could trace in my head how to get from A to B, I still feel like this is a place that exists where there is a way to get from A to B. I think because, of course, there's the theatrical versus director's cut. But for instance, in the director's cut, when you have, Valeris, not Savick, come down the pole, there's this sense that like there are all of these shortcuts around here that once you're in the ship, you get the sense for how you can navigate, around things.
I love how I knew who you were talking about just because you had your hand in the air. Because I knew that you were going to make the gesture of going down a pole, like a fireman's pole.
Now that there are two questions I want to ask you guys, because you're much bigger Star Trek fans than I am. Okay, I love the original series. I love the original series movies. I love TNG. I love DS9. I start fading around Voyager. I kind of stuck with Enterprise. Now I'm sort of tapped out. Like I sort of keep an eye on it, but I'm not really a big Trek fan. I love Lower Decks.
That's hilarious. You described almost like 80% of Trek, so I don't know why you keep distancing yourself from the franchise.
It's a bit, and I'm committed to it. That's why I'm staying with it. But I don't stay really current. I wait for you guys to say, yeah, this is worth watching, sort of thing. I don't jump on the Trek train immediately with everything. Like I didn't jump on Prodigy. I waited for a signal from you, Tristan, to be like, hey, Lower Decks is worth watching. I'd be like, all right, fine, I'll give it a try. And I was like, oh, I'm delightfully surprised, sort of thing. But I want to ask you guys, I want to throw it out there, because I think it's very obvious that this script was originally written with Valeris as Savick. And I've read plenty of stuff that it was written originally with Valeris as Savick. Do you think that this film works better with Savick in this role? Darren, I'll throw that question at you first. I gotta know.
Well, I have a counter question first. Who is playing Savick? Because if Kirstie Alley is not going to come back for the role. I mean, in this hypothetical, it could be anyone. But like, if it is Kim Cattrall, then that's the third person to play this character. So
they wanted her
trying.
They wanted
No,
Kim Cattrall to
they
play
wanted,
Savick.
yeah.
No, I'm saying like in this movie. And she's the one who
she's
said,
like, no.
I'm not going to play I'm not going to be the third actor to play this character. And so that's why they changed it.
And that's also hard on your audience. Like, okay, yes, audience, this is the same person as this actress and this actress, and we're all gonna. Your average person is gonna look at a poster with those three actresses and think that it's three separate characters. So now I know what the intention of your question, John, was. Like, is the emotional impact of it being Savick versus Valeris? Honestly, I was okay with it being Valeris, because I feel that they make sure to put in enough scenes, way more scenes of the Vulcan female officer with Spock and establishing their, mentor-mentee relationship than we got out of any of the other movies. So I totally bought his disappointment, his sense of betrayal. I didn't feel like, but if it had been Savick, then, oh my gosh, we would have clutched our, rip away red monster maroon collar and been like, I can't see that coming. But maybe it would have been a little different because, again, we do know this long running, but it's not like you're saying, well, what if it had been Sulu who had turned? It's like, that's a whole different category. That's a long standing character. She's a character that only existed in the movies. So I get the impetus of what you're saying, but I don't feel we really missed out. And in many ways, I think it was a benefit to be Valeris because it's a blank slate. You can impart exactly who she is. And I was looking for the little things in this rewatch because I've seen this many times, but the little moments when they're having their discussion and she's like basically about to say like, surely we must act. Surely we must do something. She's trying to gauge Spock and Spock's like, as he says, neither of us were listening very well that night. And so I think the role is perfect as it is. I think it works really well. It's still a Federation officer. We've established she's top of her class. And it's a fall from grace, but I don't feel we're missing an extra gut punch if it had been Saavik. So I think it was the right call.
And it also, like, showing, he said that she was the first Vulcan to be the top of her class means that Spock wasn't. I want to know who the heck was who was the top of the class when Spock graduated.
That's true. Well, we all know Bad Boy Spock. We've seen, Star Trek 2009 where he's like, live long and prosper. Ouch.
Live long and prosper.
Yeah. Live long and prosper, biatch.
Yeah.
No, I think that
we'd all know Spock as a young had an attitude problem. It's been established.
I think it works as Valeris. I think Valeris is great. I think that Kim Cattrall does a very good job of creating a different character. But I still can't help, even back in 91 when I saw this in the theater, I can't help but sit there and say, if this had been Saavik, as a fan, this is the thing, as a fan service thing, it has more impact. As a, hey, I'm just going to show you Star Trek 6 to introduce you to the series sort of thing, Valeris works very, very well. Because I agree with you, Darren.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good distinction, John. I think that's the thing, is that from a franchise perspective, I think having it be Saavik would have been awesome. It would have been amazing. It would have been gut-wrenching. It would have torn your heart out. It would have had a whole lot of more emotional weight. But as a standalone movie, no change whatsoever. But from a franchise perspective, from a fan perspective, absolutely. But here's the thing, though, is that in my head, the Saavik in Star Trek 3 is not the same person as the Saavik in Star Trek 2. And so for me, it doesn't, I feel no continuity with that character to begin with, because there's such different portrayals. They're done so differently. Like, I think her name's Robin
Curtis.
Thank you, Robin Curtis. Robin Curtis doesn't even attempt to do what Kirstie Alley did in Wrath of Khan 2. And that's fine. That's fine. It's a direction. It's a choice. It's fine. But it's so different that I don't even see them as the same character. And so I absolutely get Kim Cattrall's reluctance to want to be Saavik and be the third actress to portray that role. I think she hit it out of the park. They wanted her in Wrath of Khan. They wanted Kim Cattrall in Wrath of Khan, and she couldn't because of scheduling conflicts. And there's some universe out there. There's some parallel universe where Kim Cattrall was in all of the movies as Saavik, and then she was Saavik in Undiscovered Country.
I think that would have been amazing.
I wish I could have seen those. Yeah. That would have been cool if we got the same actress in all of the movies. But because we didn't, it's cool that we got Valeris in this, because Darren, you made a really solid point that they gave us enough scenes with Nimoy and her to really build that relationship. So you didn't really need any of the previous movies to appreciate it. And Nimoy is such a fan-friggin-tastic actor that he sells it. He absolutely sells it. And even though people often forget, like, because we're in like a post Voyager, post Deep Space Nine world where you have Tuvok, who is just like, boom, I am Tuvok. This is what a Vulcan is. I am T'Pol. This is what a Vulcan is, and everything like that. But with Spock, there were times when if it was, it was established that if you were a Vulcan and you experience extreme emotion, like if it was extreme happiness or extreme sadness, that you would break. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean you don't have any
when
emotions.
he smacks the phaser away from her after talking
Exactly.
her down.
That is an incredible
Yeah.
scene. I love, and the thing is, I have actually used that line. And everybody knows Nimoy would go in and tweak stuff because he cared so much about the character of Spock. That is definitely a Nimoy line. I still use it to this day when he looks at her and he says, "What you want is irrelevant. What you have chosen is at hand." I love that moment because it is such a perfect line. It's so, like, in the way he delivers it, there is so much internal rage. You feel that anger that he has, but it's an anger that, as all anger truly is, rooted in hurt. He's so hurt that Valeris did this. And she didn't just do it to him. She hurt Kirk. She hurt McCoy, the two people he cares most about in this world. I can feel in that line delivery, he's more angry about the fact that she put those two in danger than him. He could deal with just him. He can't deal with his two best friends in the galaxy being put in harm's way because of her. That is the worst betrayal that he could possibly feel. And I think that again is, we talked about this with Star Trek 2. That is a very skilled director listening and working with his actors and saying, "Okay, I hear you. This character is yours. I am here to facilitate what works best." And I think that Meyer once again gets what works best from his actors and actresses here. He gets stuff that truly feels real on screen because he listens to and works with the people that are there to deliver the lines.
Yeah, two things I want to say. One, I think if it had been Saavik the entire time, it would have been like she betrayed Kirk. Because I feel like Kirk had a more connection as a command structure, and it being Valeris, it was she betrayed Spock. Like, and we're talking nuances here. Like in the grander scheme, she's betraying the Federation and all of that. But I feel like Saavik, what we had seen, Saavik had a connection with Kirk. Saavik was there when Kirk's son died. Saavik was there, I feel like they established way more of a connection between Spock and Valeris. And to your, go ahead, Rid.
I understand what you're saying, but I feel like that only applies if you take out Search for Spock and how she spent almost the entire movie with Spock.
That might work because I've recently watched Star Trek 2 and 4, so I have not watched 3 recently. So you are totally right, probably.
But I would actually support Darren in this because she does spend a lot of time with David. And in Star Trek 3, she is the one that tells Kirk that David is dead.
Yes, yeah. I think Darren,
that sort of thing.
I mean,
you have a
very,
point. I'm just saying
nuanced,
that, it is nuanced. It's just that they do have a Spock connection with 3 and a little touch of 4.
But I got to ask, so long as we're talking about versions and everything like that, theatrical, original home video release, and director's cut. We have 3 different versions of this film. And I've got to ask, the theatrical version I have committed to memory. Then there's an extended version that's not really a director's cut, but it's got extra footage that was released on home video. I forget which edition it was released on. And then you have a director's edition, quote unquote, that's released on DVD. And then we revert back to theatrical on Blu-ray and then back to both versions on 4K. So I have to ask you guys genuinely, do you feel a compulsion to watch one version over the other? Or is this, I'll take it back to when we were talking about Rocky IV. When I watch Rocky IV, I don't care what version I'm watching. I think it is what it is. It is what it is, whatever version I'm watching. In Rocky IV's case, it trades one set of issues for another set of issues. but there are some very definite differences between the director's cut and the theatrical version of Star Trek VI. And the theatrical is the one I fell in love with first. But I wanted to ask you two, as lifelong Star Trek fans, which version do you think flows the best? Because that speaks to the editing question as well. Like, which one truly works and flows the best?
Theatrical.
You think
Saying
theatrical?
that, just
okay.
boom, just theatrical. I think the director's cut is unnecessary, unneeded. It doesn't hurt. Okay? Like I'm not saying like, oh, the director's cut's garbage, like you should never watch or anything like that. It's fine. It's fine. If you watch it, you get virtually the same experience. But I think what kills me, there's two things that really bug me about it, and it's the scene with the president. The first scene that we get with the president goes on way too long. Because in the theatrical cut, if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be wrong, but in the theatrical cut, the CNC reminds the president, these men have literally saved this planet. And then the president says, this president is not above the law. Boom, cut, goes to the next scene. It's great. But with the alternate version, we have intermixed, we have that weird scene where not Odo comes in, Rene Aubergenois comes in, and then like they're using paper for some reason to showcase the plans, and he has that cheesy line about cleaning their chronometers. It's unnecessary, it's unneeded, it's redundant.
Attack plan A. It's like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
It's like
What year
they
is
don't
this?
actually explain anything. But then on top
Yeah.
of that is like when we get to the Valeris scene, where she's when Spock is doing a mind meld to her. That's a super intense scene. It's also a very divisive scene. It's very intense. It's very in the moment, and it's very crazy. And in the director's cut, we have that really strong sound of whom, and then we cut and see the people's faces as if we weren't paying attention for the entire movie. I hate those moments because it dumbs it down and it treats the audience like children.
Okay, two things. One, I can take the scene of, frankly, sir, we can clean their chronometers, even with the paper, because I would consider a printout a more secure form of communicating a point than something digital in that era. As crazy as that sounds, because the Klingons also use a printout. So there's a sense of, if I have it on a computer, it can be hacked. If it's on paper, then I have it. It wasn't printed on network, sort of thing. So I can do that. And the thing is, that scene with Colonel West then plays into the Scooby-Doo unmasking later. In the theatrical cut, you don't have the unmasking of,
That's
this
true.
is not Klingon blood.
Mhm.
And you need both. If one is in there, then the other needs to be in there.
If
And
you
I
haven't established
like-
who West is, you're like, who is this guy?
Right. And I like the unmasking specifically because you see that same Klingon on Chang's ship. So you're sort of like, wait a minute, why is he in two places at once? Sort of thing. So that's fine. Two, in terms of that, during the mind meld scene, completely agree with you. And I do agree that it treats the audience as children, but there are enough people I have watched movies with where I think sometimes the audience needs
What's
to be
he
treated
doing
like
to her
children.
face? What's going on right now?
Like, I get when he says Admiral Cartwright from Starfleet, I'm like, oh, Brock Peters.
Yeah.
Or Romulan Ambassador Nonplus. I'm like, yeah, I know who he's talking about right there. General Chang, yeah, right. The Christopher Plummer. I know enough people where if they don't have that bong, they're like, who's that? I think that works better without the bong. If they had those flashes without the sound effect,
That's a sound
Okay.
effect that's a little too
problem
much.
completely absolved.
I think,
Completely
I can think I get behind that, but they needed to stick to something stylistically, because I know this sounds like nitpicking. It's really not, because it really takes me out of it. Brock Peters, black and white photo. It's stark black and white. And then we have General Chang. It is somewhat desaturated, but not black and white. And then we have the Romulan ambassador. It's less desaturated than General Chang, and it's also a still photo that they're zooming in on. And it feels like what it is. It was an afterthought scrambled and pieced together.
Oh, no, and I completely agree with that. The other stuff is all stuff that was shot at the time that was added back in where they said, okay, we had this edit and let's put it back in. That the interstitials there where she's having the mind meld, that is 30 years later coming in and saying, you know what, it'd be good if we drop that in.
Right.
I completely agree with you. I consider it a little bit like the first time I watched it, I was like, what the hell just happened? But with each subsequent viewing, I'm sort of, okay, all right, I can live with it sort of thing. Yeah, seriously, it is a desensitizing thing where once you've watched it 3 or 4 times, it's like, okay, I can live with this. It's just not what I was used to. But the one I have the hardest time with is I do like the Scooby-Doo unmasking at the end to show that it was somebody pretending to be a Klingon. And if you have the Scooby-Doo unmasking at the end, I think you need the clean their chronometer scene earlier. Otherwise, you unmask them and it's like, who the hell is this guy? Right?
See, I don't think we need the
they would have had
unmasking. I think it would have been better if it was a Klingon. I think it would have been better if it was a Klingon and not a human, because it shows a little bit more integration of the two forces trying to prevent
you have
more integration.
A corrupt, a corrupt Federation person killed the Klingon Chancellor, and a corrupt Klingon person would have killed the Federation ambassador or the Federation president.
Exactly. So, I think that would have made a stronger choice.
Puts it a little more on Starfleet's or evil Starfleet's doing like 90% of the work in this coup. No, that's a good point.
Since we're talking about going back and forth, and like, because the people who are listening to this, I'm sure are fans who have seen this a 1,000 times, and we have seen it 1,000 times. One thing that bothered me on this rewatch is General Chang. During the scene where the Chancellor is killed, and then they reestablish gravity. After they reestablish gravity, General Chang is on the view screen talking to Kirk. He's still floating during that conversation. And I never really noticed that before.
No,
and
I don't think I noticed.
He's holding
that
on. Yep. It is obviously shot when he is still supposed to be. But I will tell you that it took me decades to notice it.
That's why I'm calling it a nitpick.
Care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't care either. And that's the thing, is that like there's so many things that I just it's so funny because I got to watch this. I got the 4K disc. I got to watch it on 4K disc in Dolby Vision. Best way that you could possibly watch it. And there's certain things that I noticed more and more because I got to see it in this kind of quality. One thing, like, I got to see way more of Christian Slater's face, which is which is funny to me. For the first, it's 2023, and I've seen this movie dozens of times. This is the first time that I ever noticed that Changeling Kirk has different colored eyes.
Really?
Oh yeah,
that's
Kirk.
Awesome.
Yeah. I noticed that before.
I'm glad you got to notice that. I think that here's the thing. I think that Star Trek VI is definitely one of those movies where the multiple viewing aspect of it is both a benefit and a curse. Because, like you're saying, multiple viewings, you're like, oh, look, Chang it's because it gives you the time to notice those things. But at the same time, you get the time to notice the things like the eyes. Like the eyes, that might be something that somebody else noticed earlier, but then somebody didn't notice this earlier. And then you didn't notice that earlier, and they didn't notice this earlier. Like that sort of thing. I think that The big thing with the 4K for me is the color correction, because the Blu-ray color was just god awful. And that's so true with so many Blu-rays. The crush was awful. The smoothing was awful. Like, I noticed,
smoothing was the worst part.
my God. And with the 4K, as stupid as this sounds, I saw the cracks on Leonard Nimoy's face, and I was like, I felt like he existed again. I was like, oh, that's a real physical person that exists in a space.
Well, that's the thing, though, is that, like, you see Rand on the Excelsior in the Blu-ray version. She looks like a wax figure. She looks horrendous. Yep. And then in the 4K version, she looks like an actual person. I actually got into an argument with someone who was a complete ass to me online, because I think Trek Core released the still frames of the 4K disc, and it looked like a movie. It had grain. It was soft. It looked like a movie. And there were so many idiots in the timeline on Twitter just talking about how, the Blu-ray looks better. I'm like, no, you have been brainwashed by having the Blu-ray for 12 years, thinking that that's what it looked like, when with the 4K disc, this is the closest that it looked like to the theatrical release.
Speaking of looking like, something that has driven me nuts from time to time is the framing of this on home release. Supposedly, Nicholas Meyer is on record as saying that the 2.39:1 is his preferred, but it's been in 2:1 previously. It's been blah, blah, blah. Like, the framing of this has been all over the board with the releases. I'm hoping the 4K is the authoritative framing and matting that is supposed to occur with the film, because there are so many things that drive me nuts about films being released in multiple formats through the years where they change the matting, and Star Trek 6 is one of them, where the matte changes, and I'm like, is this the director's intent? Were you just too damn lazy to do things right? Was this like Star Trek? We talked about Star Trek 2. The initial 4K release of Star Trek 2 had a freaking assembly error where the wrong shot was in a spot. Everybody said, this shot's different. This is wrong. Paramount said, oh no, we did it right. And then they turned around and they were like, well, no, it was a process error. Here's a free one in return. And it's like, you want to talk about gaslighting. These releases, it's driving me crazy why you don't sit down with the director and Hiro Narita, the director of photography, and say, so how did you intend this to be matted? Because that's important. That's really vitally important to the film, how it looks. A lot of people spend a lot of time making that decision.
Well, and there's many moments, like with the matting, that there's a clock at the very top or very bottom of the frame. And if you matted out that clock, it kind of impacts the story, because the clock is correct through this entire movie. They reference it. It's part of the plot.
Man, as someone who has been an editor for 19 years, that would drive me insane. Like, I would grab Nicholas Meyer by the collar and say, why on earth did you do this to me? This adds nothing to the film, and this only makes my life a living nightmare as the editor.
Right?
Well, I mean, nowadays they would just post-produce the clock, and you could make it be whatever you wanted.
Exactly. That would be the sane thing to do.
Well, I have one question for you two. Have you? And this may have been what was originally intended for the ending of the film. I came across a video that was talking about it in YouTube. That initially the Excelsior was supposed to destroy General Cheng's ship, and the reasoning behind this was, well, the Excelsior is the ship that at the very beginning has been on a 3-year mission cataloging gaseous anomalies. But yet, why is the Enterprise all of a sudden equipped with gaseous anomalies? And I saw that. I'm like, you're right. It is a totally different ship that I'd forgotten since the first act. But what I'd heard of the story is that, Shatner and others were like, well, the Enterprise cannot be saved by another ship. It has to save itself. So I guess my actual question is, would you have been okay with an ending where the Excelsior plays a more pivotal role in the ending, or does it have to be Kirk every time?
No,
Kirk every time.
It
Kirk.
has to be Kirk.
100%. Like no,
Kirk every time. I all the way back in the 90s, it was like, wait a minute, no, the Excelsior is the one doing that mission, but I can headcanon it away as saying, well, the whole fleet was outfitted for it. They didn't know which ship was going out.
It doesn't
every
break
ship was
my
going, blah,
immersion.
blah, blah.
I just had never put that together.
No,
I never
I'm
really
more
put it
than
together
happy.
either until this watch, where like Darren, it's funny that you bring that up because like during this watch, I was just like, wait a second, Sulu says that at the beginning of the film.
Oh no,
Wait,
I ameliorated this years ago as just the fact that like every ship was, this was the mission of Star, because there was blah blah blah, whatever reasoning you want to give
And
it.
granted, she does say for cataloging, not for the mission we just did 3 years. Like she doesn't totally duplicate.
And
what
gives Uhura a moment, which I really like.
It does.
And I completely agree with the idea that the Enterprise, especially if this is your send away film, you cannot have your hero ship saved by somebody else. They have to be the engineers of their own salvation, period. That is.
Well, I was trying to think like, okay, let's say, what would this look like? It's like, okay, Sulu swoops in and maybe video conferences with Kirk a tiny bit, and they come up with the plan, maybe. But then what you see, no name McGee ensign on the Excelsior, and engineer what's his name putting together. Like you don't care about these people. And there's no banter, so the action would just stop. And you'd be like, what am I looking at here? When does this happen in the movie?
And we would have lost the great line of, I would give real money to get him to shut up.
All the banter of the assembly scene is great.
The banter of the assembly scene is great. And here's where I throw Joey under the bus. McCoy's line, I'd pay real money if she'd shut up. He and I had a disagreement for many years where he insisted it was Spock saying that line. And I said, are you smoking crack? Like, what the hell sense does it make that you can clearly hear that it's McCoy? And he goes, no, it's funny because Spock says it. I'm like, that's not a Spock line. What are you talking about?
Spock is reading the manual. Like,
and let me
connect echo bars. Do that.
Let me kind of throw myself under the bus, or maybe I'm throwing Joey under the bus to show what a joyless sack
You're both
he
under
was
the
at
bus,
the time.
Okay.
No. We saw it together in the theater with his dad. And when Kirk goes, fire, and the torpedo goes out and hits it, you know what? I will totally own this, that, decades ago, I was one of the nerds that shot up in the aisle and put my fist in the air and went, yeah! And Joey reached over and said, sit down. I was like, what? I'm having a good time. He was so embarrassed by me. But I love that scene to this day of Kirk stepping forward and pulling his hand up and going, fire. Like, that is just the Kirk thing.
Oh, it is. It totally
And just
is.
imagine how well you would have enjoyed that scene if you were a Star Trek fan.
You know what? If only I were.
I thought you were going to say, how well would you enjoy it if that was Captain Sulu being like, Mr. So-and-so, fire that torpedo we just prepared now.
Oh, by the way, I want to point out
Fire
one
the
thing
torpedo.
that Voyager screwed up with an episode that referenced the end of Star Trek VI.
Oh, with flashback.
How they screwed up?
They obviously didn't watch the full screen, or they watched the full screen version of this. They did not watch the widescreen, because the character who dies in the Voyager thing with the goatee, he's in the final crew shot in the widescreen.
It's a memory. It's not supposed to be.
Don't you dare do
I
this
think
to
the
me.
fact that they got many of the same actors from that shot back to shoot flashback is
screwed
I'm
up.
giving them a pass on all of that.
So he died before the final events?
In the Voyager episode,
flashback.
he dies
In
in the flashback.
He dies
but
before
in Star
they
Trek
save
6,
the president.
in Star Trek 6, he is very clearly in the final crew shot with Sulu. So
Don't let canon
just
get in the
throwing
way
that
of
out
a good
there.
story.
I mean, also
Listen.
Janeway wasn't in the final crew shot with Sulu.
Listen,
so
I just wanted to say that because I know specifically Tristan did To the Journey for
but
many
you're not
years.
a Trek fan at all, John, right?
I just want to say
You're going with the
that
deep cuts.
when I watched that episode, I went, no. Watch the widescreen version, you jackass. He's alive at the end of the film.
Well, I think
But,
it works because
just throwing it out there.
because Voyager was in full screen, and so you could only represent the full
That's
screen
why.
version of
So
Undiscovered
it's a
Country.
branching timeline where all that exists is in 4x3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
See, there you go.
I don't accept your explanation, but that's fine. That's fine.
Man, I feel like we're at 50 minutes.
I feel like we've already
Yeah.
scratched the surface on this movie.
We've only
That's
scratched
true.
the surface on this. I feel like we could keep going, but I also feel like we need to wrap it up. It's so strange. Like, this has just been a love fest about this movie, and also, I mean, we've been nitpicking here and there, but it's not out of anything, angry or upset. It's really just because we're super fans of this movie.
I will throw one thing out there that makes me angry. And I invite you guys to throw out anything that makes you angry as well. But I'm going to throw it out. It is something that has angered me since 1991 when I saw this for the first time. It is something that absolutely baffles me why they have not corrected it in all of the years since. In the final credits, Uhura, her name is Uhuru. They misspell Uhura's name in the credits, and they have
Wow.
since 1991.
Wow.
And it pisses me off to this
oh my
day.
gosh.
And I watch it every single time. And there's a little part of my brain, and I watch the end credits, not just because Cliff Idleman's score is friggin' fantastic. I
Yeah.
think his score is
This is a great
beautiful
score.
and brilliant. It's all motivated by the fact that they couldn't do Holst's The Planets. That it was a cost thing. They couldn't do an adaptation of it. And you can hear Holst's Mars, the Bringer of War, in the opening sequence.
Oh, you can
and
totally
everything.
hear it.
But every time I watch it and that joyous music is going and then the credits go up and I'm like, this time it's going to be Uhura. This time it's nope, still Uhuru.
Well, the beautiful literal sign off. The
Yep.
literal sign off of the
Literal
characters is
sign off.
such a beautiful, like the ending of this movie is perfect. Is literally perfect. From sailing into the star to literally signing off. Okay, maybe slightly tarnished by Uhuru, but besides that, it's a really good ending.
But
'Cause
it's
how
the
else do you end it?
It's the whole reason I didn't want anybody to come back for Star Trek 7 for generations. This is
If the
such a
more-
beautiful send-off. Oh
the
my
older
gosh.
the older I get, even though I really like Generations, even though I really enjoy watching it, I think it's an underrated movie. I think it's an underrated everything. I know it has its flaws. I'm not blind. But the older I get, the more I think they should have done something else. Like, they shouldn't have done the whole passing of the torch thing.
It didn't need to be a
Yep.
passing of the torch because the torch had already been passed.
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
But
DeForest
yes.
Kelly
And-
already did that in the first episode of TNG.
Yeah.
He passed the torch.
But also at the end of this one, it's so beautiful. It's such a subtle nod for Kirk to say in his log, where no one has gone before. Like, that is the literal torch passing right there.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else. That is literally, we have now changed the catchphrase, and now it has continuity
And it-
into the new series.
It's like the ending of All Good Things, where it's like, and the star, 7 card high, the star is the limit. It's just Star Trek has ended best when it's just, and the voyages continued.
Yeah.
And it's like, we don't need to know where they went or ended up. It's like, and even though they literally just said, oh, we're going to go back to Starbase and get decommissioned and this is not our ship anymore. And the journey's over, and you feel that moment on them. But as a fan, you're like, it's like the soldier that, that never returns or that never ends. It's always and forever in at least part of it, which is,
Heroes
it's a
don't
lovely
die; they
ending.
just fade away.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or become
Yep.
the villain. Longer.
Yeah, it's true. It makes me wonder if the end of Star Trek Picard season 3 is going to have that signature thing.
Honestly, if they copied it straight for straight, I would love it. I wouldn't even care
I
that
would
it's a
too.
rip on 6. I would be like, go for it. Do it. Do the same music. I don't even care.
Well, I can honestly say that coming out of the theater in Star Trek 6, everybody to a person was joyful, was walking out. We felt like we got that
It's a
send-off that
ta-da.
we all want. It truly is. They have the curtain call. They have the joyous music at the end. There's a beautiful fanfare. everybody walked out of that theater happy. Everybody walked out of that theater saying, wow, I'm glad they delayed this a week because they were afraid to go against Beauty and the Beast. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. We can live with that. And everybody walked out happy. And this is one of my favorite movie theater experiences. I can still remember where I was sitting. I can still remember the theater I was in. I can still remember walking out. I can remember the conversations beforehand. This is a film that delivers. I would use this as a way to intro somebody to Star Trek. This is a touchstone movie that I would say, okay, you want the essence of Star Trek, here it is. And it's a movie that as a fan, I can watch and rewatch over and over again, and I'm happy at the end every single time because it hits every note it needs to, while at the same time not being slavish to anything that came before or after.
John, with that monologue of how much you love it, how about you give it? How many gravity boots are you giving this?
5.
This film.
5, hands down. I'd give it 10 if I could.
Was this Arax?
5.
Is he piloting the ship?
Yeah,
with gravity boots.
And the thing is, even with the director's cut flubs and flaws, still give it a 5 because again, you have Colonel West earlier. So long as you have Colonel West later, it works. I do like Scotty getting the line, that Klingon B didn't shed one bloody tear. Hardly conclusive, Mr. Scott. Klingons have no tear ducts. Like, it's such a Spock moment right there.
That line kind of takes me off guard, honestly. Like, when Scotty says that, I'm like, geez, Scotty, like tone it down a bit.
But the thing is, and I think the movie at the time, very much relevant to the fall of Berlin Wall, all of the stuff that was going on at the time.
We haven't even talked. We didn't even talk about that. We didn't even talk about the performances, like with Christopher Plummer and David Warner.
Right. But still very, very vitally important, I think. There was a whole different viewing experience that I had this time with the rush nowadays that we have to crucify somebody for something they said in the past or in the heat of the moment. And Kirk on trial, that line where he says, those words were spoken by me, where he's forced to confront, where he's like, I kind of wish I hadn't said that. But that's not, just because somebody is confessing how they feel in their heart, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person or they did a bad thing. There's a lot to be learned from Kirk and McCoy's trial, and I think it's very relevant today as a result. So 5 out of 5 from me.
And I think the epitome of that, and one of my favorite moments in the movie, is when Spock's at the very beginning, like after the briefing, Spock says, Jim, they are dying, and he goes, let them die. And we cut to Spock, and he looks a little confused, like, really? And then we cut back to Kirk, and he has that moment of, like he's kind of looking down, he's smiling a little bit, and then he tries to change the mood. I think that was definitely found in editing. I think that moment was found in editing, but it's a beautiful moment because he says that he bears this. It's kind of a knee-jerk reaction, but as soon as he says it, that Kirk is like, okay, I probably shouldn't have said that. Like, I feel that way, but I don't necessarily think that all the time.
Interesting that you say that, because according to what I have read, who knows, so many things online, supposedly Shatner had a problem with the line, and his reaction was initially, he said, no, I'm going to play it this way, and it had him looking down like, oh, what did I just say? Meyer disagreed with him. So you see the tail end of his reaction that Shatner wanted, but Meyer specifically decided to show Spock's reaction so that Kirk's anger had more impact in that moment. So found in the editing, yes, but also in conjunction with what the actor wanted to convey.
That's cool to know. That's cool to know that it was kind of a blending of the two, because I think it really works. Darren, how many gravity boots are you giving this film?
We're going to have a ton of pairs with this because I'm also giving it 5 gravity boots. I mean, just there's so many, like, the great performances. David Warner is like an amazing Chancellor that we barely see, but he has such gravitas to this. I mean, I don't like using the word gravitas because it's a really weird to say, but he has it. And yeah, no, there's, from everything you guys are saying, from the submarine feel to that beautiful D7 ship coming at, like, we get super close to it. It is gorgeous on the screen. And then Kirk's like, oh, never this close. Like, we've never been this close to
the
this
4K
ship and seen it.
really shines with the model work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since the model work of 5 was a little bit lackluster. Just
to interject, I've had the pleasure of having a tour of some offices at ILM where I saw the gentleman's office that has the saucer section from Star Trek 6 mounted on his wall.
Oh,
and
awesome.
I saw that and I was like, that is a thing of beauty, my friends.
That's
a
the
gorgeous
sexiest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Hands down.
I messaged you guys that I watched the Darren enhanced version, which recently we had come across this awesome fan edit of the space dock exit scene from Star Trek 6, where you actually see the full weight of full impulse, or at least quarter impulse, at out of space dock. And so I literally paused that movie, went on YouTube, watched that scene, and then went back, because in my mind it just is a beautiful enhancement.
That's another moment as a fan where, like, it's a really cool moment within the movie where Kirk is just like, I'm gonna go fast out of this mother, and Valeris is like, no, you shouldn't. It's a great character building moment, but as someone who's a Star Trek nerd, like, you're gonna go quarter impulse? That's freaking irresponsible.
It's like interplanetary speeds. Like, that's how we get around the solar system. It's like, oh dang. Although I did also kind of wonder at the very beginning when Sulu's like, we're heading home on impulse power, and I'm like, you're gonna take like 20 years, Sulu. Like, there's no way.
It's so true. And when the,
I mean, granted, I knew they had to be slow so they would be hit by the wave, but still,
right.
Like,
and with the D7 and the Enterprise going together, like, they're going at impulse. You're like, why are they going at impulse? Why? Because it looks cooler than if they're going at warp.
It does.
I'm glad somebody mentioned the D7, because I know we've already talked about the movie and we're doing our ratings.
We're just gonna go as long as we need to go, John.
That shot, it's one of my favorite effects shots of all time, of that D7 entering frame and coming in and doing that drift downward, and the music, everything, like, that is just one of the most beautiful, masterfully timed and scored effects shots I've ever seen in my life. It's just
coming in for the
mastery.
first time, and we're seeing the back of it, and then when it's damaged and circling around, and then the bulb lights up, and it's menacing. I'm like, it's not really a menacing looking ship, but it becomes menacing, and you're like, and then Chekhov's just going, shields up, Captain, and
yep.
Yeah, and also the torpedo hits of the D7 it's the perfect amount of jostle and movement.
Right.
It's great effects work. I'm so glad it's just perfect effects works on this movie. But yeah, we got to wrap up. We could keep going. We're doing our ratings,
Sorry.
but yeah, we're still bragging on the film. Obviously, this is 5 magnetic boots from me. This is my favorite Star Trek film from the original series, and depending on which day you ask me, this is my favorite Star Trek film of all time. Like, this goes back and forth between the 1 spot and the 2 spot for me. I think this is a better film than Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan is a 5-star film. I think this is a better film than Wrath of Khan. I absolutely love it.
I won't say better, but I will say I'm more inclined to watch 6 because I'm happier at the end of it. 2 is a difficult film to watch. Like, I think I said this while we were talking about it. Like, I watch it when I need a cry, when I need something cathartic, where I'm like, yeah, I'm coming to terms with things. I want to feel that emotion right there, where it's like, okay, you got to hang with it, and there's pain and there's realization about mortality. It's a very heavy film. 6 is a film I can watch at any moment. I can just put it in and watch it. So I wouldn't use the word better, but I would say it is an incredibly accessible film, because this is the soundtrack I'll put on and listen to. Because if I want to drive somewhere fast, I will play the music from the final battle, and my foot is on the floor and I'm doing 90 miles an hour, because that is just, Cliff Idleman doesn't get enough praise for this score. But anyway,
Full
I know.
impulse.
Yeah, full impulse. That's right.
All right, everybody. Well, you have our ranking 5 stars across the board, just like with Wrath of Khan, which makes Nicholas Meyer just hitting it out of the park 2 times in a row. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Please go to thenerdparty.com for all of our previous episodes and all of our other shows. And next week is going to be an absolute surprise to you on what director we're doing next. So please tune in.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.